Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Where a huge fire is still burning after it engulfed this residential tower block in West London just before 1 o'clock this morning. 12 people are known to have died, but we are being told that that figure is expected to rise. Firefighters managed to get a lot of people out, and almost all the building has now been searched. More than 70 people are being treated in 6 different hospitals. 20 are critically ill. The Mayor of London says many are still unaccounted for. Grenfell Tower is part of a social housing complex of nearly 1,000 homes near the Westfield shopping centre in West London. It's 24 stories high, and in it were 120 flats. Up to 600 people may have been inside when the blaze broke out. Most would have been asleep. The cause of the fire isn't yet known, and we do know the alarm was raised just before 1 o'clock this morning. Fire crews were on the scene 6 minutes after they were called. Our first report on the tower block fire this evening is from our home editor, Mark Easton. A warning: there are distressing images from the start of his report.
Oh my God, they're screaming!
It is a tragedy that plays to our darkest fears.
Yeah, there was smoke everywhere, literally everywhere. There was people downstairs, there was the block, cladding falling off the block, that was on fire. Screaming. People screaming.
Oh, yo, 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 yo!
The fire started between midnight and 1, the screams from the flats and the acrid smell of burning waking neighbours.
It was just, people jumping out literally and putting sheets down to try and get out of the building. Windows exploding, big massive pieces of debris falling to the floor.
We came here to see people jumping off, people calling...
You saw people jumping off?
Yeah, people have jumped off because they had no other option to.
How high up?
The top floor.
Saw someone jump and someone was on fire and they jumped too, and he didn't make it.
So people have picked up their kids and thrown them out for the police to pick them up because there was no other way out the building.
Did you see that as well?
I saw kids standing at the window screaming, help me, I can't breathe, help me.
And all these people have lost people in their lives, and how that feels. My heart goes out to them.
Oh, look, man.
The fire raced through the 24-storey council block in this deprived part of North Kensington. On the 7th floor, this family were led to safety when a fire officer made it up to their flat.
And the smoke everywhere, people screaming, the other neighbours were coming out. There was a fireman there going, get out, get out. So I ran back in, I'm just in my boxer shorts, I put my dressing gown on. I've grabbed a little girl, put her under my dressing gown to cover her face from the smoke, got my girlfriend up, ran down the stairs, we're on the 7th. As we're running down, we've gone to the 4th floor and it's pitch black.
This mother and her 6-year-old son were also trapped on the 7th floor. For a moment, she thought her best option was to jump through the window with her child in her arms.
For a split second, I had that temptation to jump over because the smoke was full, so...
You actually thought about jumping from the building?
Yeah.
And then your husband just grabbed you and took you out?
Yeah, so I called 911, so they sent us something. Otherwise, my second thought was, let's just jump.
Many residents have complained to me that the fire alarm was too quiet to hear and that the blaze raced from the bottom to the top of the block in less than half an hour.
All the time we've lived there, they've said if there's ever any fires, you've got to stay in the flat because the fire can't penetrate the front door. But if we'd stayed in the flat, we all would have perished because, there was no way we were stopping no fire.
Residents told me that they'd complained to the authorities that the building, recently refurbished, was a disaster waiting to happen.
We tried to take a lot of things to our local MP, and it looked like it has been ignored, but we were scared that this could happen because if there is one fire happen, we knew that this would happen.
Deep poverty and extraordinary wealth live side by side in this part of North London. The block was home to some of Kensington's poorest families. With dawn came grim, if expected, news that lives had been lost.
I'm looking for my brother.
Was he in the flat at the time?
Yeah.
So you don't know whether he's okay?
Many people, numb with shock, frantically search to find missing friends and relatives. This woman's sister and 12-year-old nephew were unaccounted for.
My sister with her son, yeah.
How old was he?
He's 12 years old. His name is Brooke. That's why I asked her, he's Mrs.
12-year-old boy. As well as the smoke and the smell of burning, numb shock and tension hangs over this area. In the 21st century, in a country with some of the strictest fire regulations in the world, a desperate tragedy like this just should not happen.
What floor are you on? Huh? 7, yeah?
Well into the morning, the crowds watching the horror unfold in front of them reported seeing people still trapped in the block.
I saw somebody there waving in a white...
In a white shirt?
Yeah, white shirt, yeah.
A man was eventually brought out by the emergency services at noon. This off-duty nurse helped tend to some of the injured rescued from the building.
I've seen some things, but today I can't even describe it. There's mothers that have come out and lost their children. There are firefighters that have come out injured that we don't know if they're going to even come out safe. People have lost their homes, children have seen things, people were jumping out the window. We just need to rebuild as a community now.
As the community realised the enormity of what had happened, people just did what they could. This woman went to her wardrobe, grabbed a bag of her own clothes to give to those who had none.
A bag of clothes, to me, is nothing when I could help somebody else, you know?
But this is a community where a lot of people don't have a lot, you know, so that kind of generosity is quite something.
I know, but, you know, they could be replaceable. My clothes could be replaceable.
We are the community. We love our community.
And
we're heartbroken for our community. This is terrible. It's a disaster for this community. But we are pulling together. The people that have nothing are here getting things for the people that have nothing.
Sadly, I can confirm that there are now 12 people that have died that we know of. This is going to be a long and complex recovery operation. And I do anticipate that the number of fatalities will sadly increase beyond those 12.
This is a neighbourhood that feels ignored. There's anger on the streets, people demanding answers.
This is your building, isn't it?
And we've got a number of high-rise buildings here and, of course, in other parts of London. And they do have to meet stringent safety and fire safety standards. And in a refurbishment, there will be a thorough inspection by the fire authorities. So we will need to see.
Doesn't appear to have worked, though, does it?
Well, it clearly hasn't worked, and we will need to get to the bottom of what has gone wrong.
London's mayor promised there would be a thorough and independent investigation into what had happened.
My thoughts and prayers, as I'm sure the thoughts and prayers of the entire country, are with the family and friends of those in the building and affected by this tragic and horrific fire. Also pay tribute to the amazing emergency services from the fire service. We have more than 250 firefighters, many of whom have been here from the beginning.
The streets of North Kensington are littered with ashes, the charred homework of a school child blown from Grenfell Tower. But the neighbourhood is also scarred by grief that will not pass for a long, long time. Mark Easton, BBC News, North Kensington.
Well, throughout the night, stories emerged of people who had escaped the tower block and watched the fire as it swept through the building. Many are now being sheltered in nearby community centres. And that's where family and friends of those who are missing are also heading, going from centre to try to find their loved ones. Our special correspondent Lucy Manning has been talking to the families caught up in this tragedy.
The air was punctuated with the sound of crying. Some have lost their home, others much, much more. They gathered outside the community centre, but the one thing no one could offer was good news. For the Shakir family, it was understandably too much.
My mum, my sister, her daughters and her husband. Yeah.
they're all still in the building. Well, I don't know if they're out, I don't know, because we don't know any information.
Susan Shakir gave us this picture of her 3 smiling nieces, Myrna, Fatuma and 3-year-old Zainab.
And what floor were your family on?
22nd, yeah.
And you haven't been able to contact them at all?
I phoned my sister when it was, when she was in there. All I could hear was screaming. And I was trying to tell her, get out, get the nearest fire exit. All I hear people screaming. I'm shouting my head so she can hear, So even the police officer heard me shouting on the phone, I really just wanted to go in there, basically, at least do something. I felt hopeless just standing there, a blanket at least, let people jump out the window.
In the last hour, Susan heard news that someone might have spoken to her family. She's hoping it's true. After the panic of the night, the day brought only silence.
They're missing my brother-in-law, his wife, and 3 children. The children age is 20, a boy is 20, a girl of 16, 17, and a boy of 8 years.
Ahmed spoke to them as they were trapped.
I said, why are you not coming? She said, they asked us to stay in. I said, where is your husband? She said, he's talking to the emergency people. And then she said, everything's all right, they're coming to get us, but the heat and the smoke is coming. And I said, look, get a wet blanket, put the kids on the floor and cover them and wait. And she said, we can't do it because the smoke is killing us, smoke is coming. Smoke is coming from the doors, she keep covering it, but it's heavy. And that was the last time we've heard from her.
For those on the lower floors who did make it out and to the centre, some relief.
I woke up at about 1:45 in my living room to help me. A woman screaming, my baby, my baby, my baby, and also the sounds of chaos. When police were coming through the walkway, knocking on everyone's door, evacuate, evacuate, evacuate.
We're friends and Iraqi. Trying to get the hell out of there, this thing's going up.
Ed Daffin was saved by his friend Will, calling him and telling him to leave.
This smoke was so thick, you just couldn't see anything. And I got maybe 3/4 of the way, and then I was using my hands to feel against the wall, but I was actually began thinking to myself, this is going to be me, I'm going to die of smoke inhalation here. And there was actually a fireman lying on the ground. And this fireman, he saved my life, to be honest, because he just sort of touched my foot and kind of led me where the fire exit was.
Ed was instrumental in raising concerns about the safety of the building years ago.
This accident never needed to have happened. If people had listened to what we were saying, what the blog was saying, what people, not just me, but what other members of the community were saying, this is an accident that never needed to happen.
Well, inside the centre, those who are waiting for news or have lost their homes are gathered downstairs in the hall. As you can imagine, it is a fairly distressing situation at times. People are sobbing as they wait for news that at this stage will possibly not be good news. But it's also busy in there. They're getting help with housing and with food and medical help as well.
They have no homes to go back to. And now it's not just the burnt-out building that looms over this community, but the fear that they will hear that many more of their neighbours have died. Lucy Manning, BBC News, West London.
Well, more than 70 people are being treated at 6 hospitals nearby. A major incident has been declared. 100 medical staff, ambulance, paramedics, doctors have also been working here at the scene. Our medical correspondent Fergus Walsh is outside St Mary's Hospital in Paddington with the latest. Fergus.
Well, for the third time in as many months, London's medical staff have responded to a major emergency. The latest I have for you is that tonight 34 people remain in hospital. 18 of those are in a critical condition, most suffering from the effects of smoke inhalation. The response to this fire has severely tested London's healthcare system after what was described as a challenging and complex incident. Paramedics, trauma teams and London's air ambulance were all involved in a highly coordinated response. The key was to stabilise patients and get them to one of 6 hospitals where specialist teams were on standby.
At St Mary's, we're caring for 16 patients, 3 of whom are in a critical condition. At Charing Cross Hospital, we have 4 patients, none of whom are critical. We are continuing to care for patients who are primarily suffering from the effects of smoke inhalation.
Inhaling smoke can damage the lungs and airways and may also cause carbon monoxide poisoning. Specialist burns teams were on standby, but it's understood they did not treat any casualties. 12 hours after it broke out, a toxic cloud was still billowing from Grenfell Tower, leading to concerned residents handing out face masks donated by local firms.
People are breathing in the smoke here, and there's lots of soot, and there's also, toxic substances that have been used in the building that we're aware of.
And everywhere you look in the surrounding area are these blackened, sooty fragments. This children's playground is littered with pieces of debris which have floated down from the building and are what appear to be pieces of insulation from the outside of the tower block. And you can taste the soot at the back of your throat. Everyone's main concern is for the residents of Grenfell Tower, but there are worries too for those living nearby.
We found it hard to breathe, and we felt like we were tasting that smoke. So we don't know the damage this will have on our lungs. We have a lot of residents who are vulnerable, elderly people, people with severe disabilities, so we're concerned for them. Little children as well, children under the age of 5.
St Mary's and Charing Cross hospitals say their accident and emergency departments remain very busy. They've asked the public to use walk-in centres or their GP unless it's an emergency, allowing them to focus on those injured in this appalling tragedy. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Well, in the last hour, authorities have been giving an update on the number of casualties and the firefighting operation. Ben Brown was there. He joins us now from one of the police cordons. Ben, what did they say?
Yeah, Sophie, all the emergency services were represented here. They confirmed that the death toll had doubled from 6 to 12, and they said they fear that that will rise further. There's quite a number of people who are still unaccounted for. They said 68 people were taken to hospital, 10 took themselves to hospital, and 18 are currently in critical care. Now we can just show you the state of the building at the moment. There are still flames burning in parts of the tower block, and the London Fire Brigade said they are still trying to extinguish those flames that remain, and they've got many more hours of work here. They said it's very, very challenging inside. They said they have been to the very top of the building. It's 24 stories high, but they have reached the top floor in their search for any survivors. They said very sadly there are no survivors in there, but they say, managed to rescue 65 people.
Ben Brown, thank you. Well, within just a few hours of the fire breaking out, people were arriving at the shelters that have been set up here in churches, sports and community centres. They were carrying food, clothes, water. They were handing out masks to people in the street to protect them from the acrid smoke. Well, Elaine Dunkley has spent the day looking at the response of the local community here, and she joins us now. Elaine.
Well, Sophie, people are still arriving here with bags and boxes full of food and clothing. This area of London is incredibly diverse. It's wealthy, but there are also people here who don't have very much. And there are many faiths living and working alongside each other. And as well as offering each other possessions, they've been offering emotional support. People here have been hugging each other, holding each other's hands. Residents in this community have told me they've been overwhelmed by the generosity.
This church hall a refuge for those who have nothing and for those who want to give. They've been overwhelmed with donations.
Today we've been out, we've bought a load of phone charges, and we've given people the phone charges to help them call loved ones and to make sure they're all safe and everyone knows where everybody is. We've also donated some money. We've given some money to some families. Darren withdrawed £1,000 out his account. And we've been giving families £100 just to see them over the next couple of days.
I mean, it's amazing how everyone's come out in the community, and it just shows you how people will stick together in a time like this.
And how caring people are. They've been so caring.
This hall is full of provisions, from shoes to toiletries. People are sharing their homes, others are offering their time.
I see that London is still together, and regardless of your background, I'm from Brazil, and where you come from, everybody got together. It is an amazing feeling I have. In 15 minutes, this hall, as you see, it is absolutely full of clothes, baby stuff, food, water. It is amazing.
On another corner, just moments away from where people have lost their lives and others all their possessions, there are more supplies.
Well, we've had bedding, headscarves, toiletries, everything you can think of that people might want. All the front here is food. I have kids at the local primary and secondary. Texts are coming in, new centers that are open, where else people can take donations. I happen to be nearby, so.
I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and I was taking her to school this morning, and on that road where we walked to school, there's a very, very clear view of the tower and what was going on. Fire was sort of really going at that point, early in the morning, and she understands what's going on, and so after school we came by here and she wanted to help load donations from this box into the van that's taking them on to the shelters where people are being looked after.
This is an area where there is wealth and those who have very little. People from all backgrounds trying to do their best.
This community is very strong. Obviously, it's not about who's rich and who's poor, as you can see. You'll see people with suits and people with tracksuits, just helping around and doing what they can do the best. There's also people here, whether it's from different castes and different colours. A lot of youth is involved as well, from what I can see. You can see a lot of students just running around, picking up stuff. Me being from the Sikh community, trying our best, making sure there's water everywhere, aid.
Such has been the response. Centres here in North Kensington say they now have enough supplies. But for those who have lost everything, the need has only just begun. Elaine Dunkley, BBC News.
Well, I'm joined here by somebody who has indeed lost absolutely everything. Oscar Millen has lived in this tower block for 35 years. You have had a very lucky escape. You were pretty low down, weren't you?
Yes. I was very, very lucky. I was the luckiest one. I was the first person that came out from the infirmary.
How difficult was it for you to get out? How thick was the smoke when you woke up?
Well, at that moment, because it was only about 6 minutes, the fire just started from my flat below, and I actually myself and my friend tried to put the fire out with the extinguisher, but the extinguisher didn't work at that time. And then obviously I say to my friend, and then we try to throw some water, because coming from my window, the window was quite open a little bit, and there was I had the fire was like with the wind like that, and then I tried to put it out in myself, but we couldn't, because I tell my friend, listen, it's better go, because there is no chance we go.
And the flames took hold so fast, didn't they?
Yes, definitely. This was so fast, and then I went for the second time. I went to my computer room, grabbed my passport. I was lucky to get my telephone as well. That was the only two things I can save from the inferno.
And outside, when you got outside, complete panic.
And then I went outside. I went through the stairs. It was still clear, and the firemen, luckily, there's heroes. They were inside the building already.
And you were with your friend. Your daughter, thankfully, was out, but you were with your friend, and his daughter, his young 12-year-old daughter, still missing.
Yeah. Because they're living up in the 17th floor. I think they're living there. And then he was lucky. He was at that moment in my house, and I don't know. But her mother was with her. And then I don't know. Her mama come out, but they say the child is somewhere, but they cannot find her anymore. And then we went out, and then I saw some firemen already in the building. They took about 6 minutes. They're fantastic, they were fantastic, very fast to coming down. But the thing I find difficult for them is there was not much access to get into the building.
Get in.
I know maybe many people said that already, but I was one of the first ones to notice that, because all the boilers in there, they cannot move those things. It's quite thick, they're quite thick. You cannot move them, not even with a fire engine, you cannot move them. You know,
So difficult for them to get in.
And that's the point. They lost a lot of time because of that. The fire was so quick, like a squirrel going up the tree, you know. And it was very fast.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Okay, thank you.
Well, an emergency number has been set up for anyone concerned for loved ones in this area, in the North Kensington area. The Casualty Bureau is 0800 0961 233. That's 0800 0961 233.
So it's believed to have started shortly before 1 o'clock in the morning on the lower floors of that 24-storey block behind me. Within half an hour, flames were leaping up the side of the building. At the height of the blaze, the building was engulfed, with some residents fleeing, others screaming for help, and others, according to eyewitness reports, either jumping from the windows themselves or throwing children out to be caught by emergency workers below. So far, 12 people are known to have died, but police say that number will increase. For our first report tonight, Jackie Long has been piecing together the events that resulted in the worst fire of its kind in living memory in Britain.
A modern tower block in the heart of London, destroyed in the most primitive of ways. A fire which started in one of the 120 flats tore through almost the entire block within little more than an hour.
For everyone's safety, we just need to move you back a little bit.
The ferocity and speed of the blaze, leaving people just minutes to escape.
I have my life, which I'm grateful for, but everything that I've worked for over the years, it's just gone. I have nothing, no home, nowhere.
We saw people looking out the windows screaming help, help, flashing their lights and everything, and now all those windows, people are gone, literally gone.
It was harrowing, torturing screams for help, young kids, and I could also, where the fire was now spreading, people were reaching out from the front window, trying to grasp a bit of fresh air, trying to breathe. They looked like they were struggling.
People's desperate efforts to survive, terrifyingly clear.
A lady appeared at the window, gesturing, body language, from what she was saying, I'm about to throw my baby, please catch the baby. And the baby, I think, was wrapped in some sort of bedsheet blanket, and she threw the baby as the baby came down, and this was about approximately from the 9th or 10th floor. A member of the public, a gentleman, ran forward and miraculously grabbed the baby.
The fire broke out around 1 in the morning. Eyewitnesses repeatedly told us how initially it had looked containable, but said it shot through one side of the block like a lightning bolt.
Quick, guys, save a life.
200 fire officers and 40 fire engines arrived to confront a scene described by one fire officer as like something out of the third world. Grenfell Towers is owned by the local council but run by management company, the Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Organisation. It had a multi-million-pound refurbishment last year. The block sits in one of the poorest parts of one of the richest boroughs in the country. Amid all the horrific details which have emerged over the last few hours, there is also this. Residents have complained for years that their concerns about safety at the flats were simply being ignored. One local action group warned just last year that it would take a catastrophic event with serious loss of life to make the authorities finally sit up and listen. So claims that fire alarms didn't activate only confirmed clearly long-held views in and around the estate that proper safety measures were still not in place, despite that warning.
Not surprised again that the fire alarms, if they didn't work, because that would be typical of how the tenant management organisation, the level of service and how well they ran the building. There was one fire escape through the core of the building, just the one, and the strategy as communicated to us by newsletters and the like was to stay put, to stay in our properties and await rescue.
There was no fire alarms anywhere because we don't have a kind of integrated fire alarm system. It's just everyone's house for itself. So I kind of went back inside the house, looked out the window. I started looking down the window. like I had to really pull myself out to look down the window from the 17th floor, and I see the fire blazing and coming up really fast because of the cladding. The cladding was flammable, and it just caught up like a matchstick.
At a press conference today, the fire service and the London mayor refused to speculate on what might have caused the fire and why it spread so quickly, but promised such questions would be answered fully.
This is a completely unprecedented fire. In my 29 years in the London Fire Brigade, I have never seen a fire of this nature, and I have seen many high-rise fires. This will, of course, be subject to a major investigation, but at this moment in time, we do not wish to speculate further about the cause of the fire or the fire spread.
The focus of the experts today is the search and rescue. Very soon, I'm afraid, it'll move on to recovery. But there are genuine concerns, reasonable concerns that have been raised during the course of the night, and it's really important that these questions are answered.
The death toll has risen during the day, and police warn it will rise still more. On a horrific day, one tiny bit of light. Huge numbers of people took to the streets around the flats, offering food, shelter and support to the families left homeless and to those still waiting desperately for news.
With me are Tiago Alves, who lived on the 13th floor. If you look just here, just above the branches of the tree, that would be where he lives with his sister, or lived with his sister, mum and dad, who are all okay. And by Danny Vance, he is a pastor of the Notting Hill Community Church. Let's start with you, Alves. Tiago. Tiago, just tell us what happened to you and your family.
Well, it started off, so we went to have dinner with some family, and my parents were going to take them home. So they dropped me and my sister off at home because my sister had an exam the next morning, and so she wanted to get a good night's rest. So they dropped us both off. She went to bed, and they went to drop our family off at their hotel. Then once they were arriving again, they walked towards the block, and they got into the lift. As they got into the lift, another two people joined them, and once inside the lift, those two people pressed the number 4, and when the doors opened on the number 4, the whole room was filled with smoke. At that point, my dad realized, there's a fire in the building. So my dad had left his phone in the car, so he asked my mum to go downstairs, pick up the phone from the car, which was in the garage, and then he ran up the stairs from the 4th floor to the 13th floor to wake me and my sister up. So all I remember is just, I was about to get into bed, and then all I hear is the door unlock and the door just swing open, and my dad shout, and he's like, Tiago, Ines, get ready, there's fire in the building. And so all I remember is just putting on my trousers, picking up my phone, picking up my keys, picking up my wallet, and just leaving. I left a lot
of presence of mind picking up those bits.
Yeah, it was what was on my desk at the moment, at that time. And I really couldn't think of picking up anything else. So I grabbed my sister and we ran down the stairs. And
by now the smoke was pouring into the stairwell, no?
There was only closer to about the sixth floor.
Halfway down?
Yeah. My dad stayed around to wake up the neighbours on our floor, and luckily all of them...
He got out okay?
Yeah, he got out okay, and all the neighbours on our floor also got out okay. So then we came downstairs, and then the fire was quite small at the time, and so we thought that
containable.
We thought it could be contained.
But how do you feel now?
I'm lost for words. It's absolutely devastating what happened, because we thought that it was something, when we were looking at it, it was something small.
But mum and dad and you've lost everything, well, except your wallet, your keys and your phone.
Yeah. Thing is, for me, what was more important is the fact that both my parents, my sister and myself, are okay. And unfortunately, I can't say the same for the 12 people who may have lost their lives. However, I am glad that as many people as possibly could escape.
I'm going to come back to you in a moment. I want to come to Danny. Danny, the extraordinary thing to witness today has been the amazing way in which the community has rallied. People from all over this area of London have come through with amazing stuff. What's been happening to you?
I mean, we opened our building about 11.
well, even earlier, about 9, I think. And people just started streaming through with, what can we do to help?
Yeah.
There was this kind of collective care in the community, which I've not quite seen before. We had people travelling in from Luton today.
Amazing.
With just bags of clothes. We have people...
you know, at 4 o'clock, I was in a reception centre, community centre, and they said, no, don't bring any more.
That's right.
We can't manage. We just need nappies.
That's right.
We need a bit of bedding.
Yeah.
We need some medical stuff. But please, nothing else.
That's
We're
right.
awash, and there's nowhere to put it.
We can't take any more. I mean, we've had to just say no more clothes and things like that, because it's been overwhelming. I mean, we're not a relief agency. You know, we don't deal with these type of disasters. And so we've all just been trying to muck in as best we can to
But there's
help out.
also anger, isn't there? I mean, I've met people on the street very angry.
Yeah, there is.
Frustrated.
Yeah, there is.
And also there's a residual belief that this is something which could happen here.
I think this represents something for lots of different people.
Yeah.
I think for the more richer people in our borough, it shows that the more poorer members are not exaggerating when they talk about how difficult it is and how the disparity
Poverty.
is very real.
Yeah.
And so...
Let me go back to you, Tiago. When you were out of the building, could you see people being rescued? There is talk of babies being thrown from the tower.
Unfortunately, I was on the other side of the building by that point. My sister wasn't feeling well at all.
Yeah.
So I said, let's just get out of here. We went to a friend's house who lives right on the block behind us there. And
where are you going to sleep tonight?
I'm actually sleeping over at a friend's house with my parents and my sister.
Oh, that's...
So, we've got a very, very nice group of friends who've
But you must be daunted by having to find a home,
Yes.
find possessions, clothes, everything.
Yes.
At least you're still at university.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. But you're still in session?
Yes.
So you can escape there?
Yes. Luckily, I've had the ability to... the university have called me in and said, asked me if I was okay, asked me if I needed anything. And they've been absolutely brilliant, and they've tried to help me as much as I possibly can.
Tiago, Danny, thank you both very warmly for coming. Well, now let's go over to Kathy, who is at one of the community centres that is providing food and support to the survivors. Kathy.
Thanks, John. Well, as we've heard, the fire broke out shortly before 1 o'clock when many of the residents of the block were asleep in their beds. As the alarm was raised and the scale of the blaze became clear, the emergency services swung into action, rescuing 65 people from the burning tower. Our reporter Asad Beg was on the scene at the height of the fire, and he has this report on how events unfolded in a traumatic night.
The whole building's gonna catch fire, you know.
If only he had been wrong. A short time later, the entire building was engulfed in flames. Those that managed to escape were treated on the roadside. Others looked on in utter disbelief, hoping, praying that the fire service could rescue those trapped inside in time. I arrived here in the early hours of the morning. The atmosphere was of complete shock for residents. Children clung to their parents. Crowds of people huddled together in silence. This was a nightmare faced by the residents of Grenfell Tower, their homes, possessions and memories destroyed in the inferno.
We've been looking at the fire for the last couple of hours, and about 45 minutes ago we were asked to leave and evacuate because it was getting dangerous. We live in the building just adjacent, and I saw one person trying to jump out, one actually jump out, and obviously what happened, it's just a nightmare.
I heard them screaming, just stay inside, don't move. Now the building is all fire on it, you see that?
Grenfell Tower is part of the Lancaster West Estate, a social housing complex of almost 1,000 homes. Emergency services tried to calm frantic crowds, many of whom were trying to contact people stuck inside.
Anybody who is speaking to the building, they need to ring 999. There is a dedicated line for...
But before the emergency services and journalists arrived on the scene, the shocking footage had been shared on social media. The tragedy unfolding on smartphones and instant uploads.
Open your window! Open the window!
As dawn broke, the extent of this tragedy began to sink in. The smouldering and charred tower block casting a long shadow. The morning didn't bring with it an end to the darkness, just the long day that was to come.
Well, joining me now are Ross O'Brien, who's an NHS mental health worker, Madiha Raza from Muslim Aid, and Victoria Magoya, who's a nurse. Welcome to all of you. Madiha first, you've been talking to survivors all day. What kind of state are people in after this awful tragedy?
People are obviously visually distressed. People are worried. People cannot find their loved ones. So from Muslim Aid, we've been speaking to them, we've been trying to calm them down, give them emotional support, and the response from the community has been absolutely phenomenal. From the emergency services, people from all faith backgrounds, non-faith backgrounds, really it's been amazing, but people are visually distressed.
And they're also angry, aren't they? I mean, is that because of the lack of information or the lack of coordination? Why do you think that is?
I think they are angry because, they've not been given much information, but again, at such an early stage, it is difficult to find that information. So again, from Muslim Aid, what we've been trying to do is just trying to calm them down and tell everyone to stay calm until we have further information to give them.
Victoria, you're a nurse who I believe you happen to live locally.
Yes.
So what made you come along and get involved?
Oh, I had to come. I work with a local NHS trust and I live locally. So I had to run out with my natural instinct to help. At the point of arrival, there was still a lot of chaos with the injured and confused and saddened community. So on my effort, I tried to get people calm and reassure them. And then I created a makeshift center for doing dressings for those who had minor injuries, because getting them to the ambulance was very chaotic. People were running up and down the streets. So I tried to coordinate and get the wounded downstairs, and then I got 2 doctors on board, and we tried to sort out people who had problems like diabetes, making sure their blood sugar levels were okay.
I mean, Ross, if Victoria's been helping people with their physical problems, you've been on hand to try and give mental support, haven't you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we've been working with the London Ambulance Service and the Red Cross who are on site here to coordinate the first line response, and then also making people aware of what the second response would be, so when the NHS services step in and offer something extra after that. We've seen a lot of people with various degrees of distress. We've seen people arrive that aren't able to process what's going on, and we've been here basically to kind of offer that first line response and support.
A lot of people too shocked to really process what's going on.
Yeah, that's true, and that's a normal response. You know, people respond to an incident like this with fear and anxiety and not
anger
able
as well.
And anger. Some withdraw. You know, it's fight or flight. Some withdraw, and some kind of look for conflict.
Victoria, you were talking about some of the chaos in the street. People do have reason to be angry, don't they?
Yes, they do. I've spoken to people who thought that there was no coordination, which of course it was a chaotic scene, but the services and the community have been brilliant in trying to bring that chaos and anger to a reasonable, working environment.
Madiha, a lot of the people who rushed to help were Muslim, weren't they? Tell us why that was.
Yes, they were. As you know, it's the holy month of Ramadan, so a lot of people have been fasting. The night prayers just before the fire, people were out on the street returning from their prayers. So a lot of the first responders were Muslim. And again, even this morning, a lot of the responders were Muslim, non-Muslim, everyone together. From Muslim Aid, we came down, and we've seen loads of other charities from different faith backgrounds come to the scene as well. But as you said, some of the first responders were Muslim. Yeah.
And you were helping people who couldn't speak anything but Arabic as well, weren't you?
Well, I can't speak Arabic personally, but yes, Muslim Aid have been trying to put people in touch with the right translators and people that are able to speak the language, because they do need emotional support at the time.
And Victoria, there's been this incredible sort of pulling together of the community, hasn't there? I mean, churches in the area, you've been involved with that, haven't you?
At the moment, we have had 7 church halls opened up in the area, and the priests have been down here with us, and we've been serving food, drinks, and we've been putting away the charitable donations. It's been enormous donations, and we had to redirect and open up other centers. From when I last counted, there were 7. I had to shuttle between all of them so that when they got full up, I had to push to other centers that needed more stuff.
Thank you all three very much for coming down and talking to me this evening. Thank you.
Well, good evening from West London, where a block of 120 flats home to hundreds of people is tonight a 24-storey ruin rising into the night sky, burned out, and a blackened monument to an as yet untold number of dead. So far, only 12 people are confirmed killed, but looking at what is left and looking at the overnight pictures of flames bursting from countless windows, it is hard to believe that that figure won't be multiplied many times over. Well, as you can see, flames are still burning inside even now. The fire appears to have started on the 4th floor. A faulty fridge may have been to blame and took just 15 minutes to reach the top floors. During that time, eyewitnesses saw people jumping from windows and babies and children being thrown from upper stories. The tower block fire began in the middle of the night while people slept unaware.
Beneath a still moon, a blaze of such ferocity, it is almost filmic. A vision as near to hell as could be imagined, as the flames soar through 24 floors, engulfing all in their path. The warnings this building was a fire trap apparently went unheard, but it was impossible to miss the screams of those begging to be saved from it. As the debris began to fall, those trapped on upper floors were told to stay inside their flats. But their fear of being lost in the flames sent them to the windows. Silhouettes of desperate men, women and children battling for the last to escape, trying to remind people that they were still there.
There's a family there, there's a kid. Oh, he's right there, oh, there's another one.
We saw people looking out the window screaming help, help, flashing their lights and everything. And now all those windows, people are gone, literally gone.
You know, I saw one person trying to jump out, one actually jump out, and obviously what happened, it's just a nightmare.
Those who were able to escape fell into nearby streets, barely able to comprehend what they'd just gone through and what others were still going through. The smoke which logged their homes logged their lungs, leaving many struggling to breathe. For the children, a chance to sleep, or at least a chance to close their eyes on the horror. Around 600 people lived in Grenfell Tower. Those who survived have been left with quite literally what they stood in the street in. The break of day did nothing to ease the horror of the night. Some people had managed to survive inside for hours, their shouts and waves for help finally heeded. Others described how mothers resorted to throwing their children to safety.
A lady appeared at the window, gesturing, body language, from what she was saying, I'm about to throw my baby, please catch the baby. And the baby, I think, was wrapped in some sort of bed sheet blanket, and she threw the baby as the baby came down, and this was about approximately from the 9th or 10th floor. A member of the public, a gentleman, ran forward and miraculously grabbed the baby. And like I said, above you, from the left, from the right, mostly kids, it was harrowing, torturing screams for help, young kids. And I could also, where the fire was now spreading, people were reaching out from the front window, trying to grasp a bit of fresh air, trying to breathe. They looked like they were struggling. And there were, at one point, one window, about 4 or 5 heads all squeezing their heads through. It was honestly like a horror movie.
Some had knotted sheets together to escape, willing to fall the last floors in the hope of escaping the flames.
There was debris flying everywhere. There was children banging on windows. You know, you could hear women, men screaming, shouting out for help. And I mean, when the fire got to its peak point, I could actually hear a man screaming, and then all of a sudden the screaming just stopped.
So many people here have no idea what's become of their families, and they wait on the street. Perhaps there is some solace in shared suffering.
I have my brother-in-law and his wife and 3 children.
They're still missing. We're looking for them.
What floor were they on?
21st.
And how old are the children?
21, 15, 8 years old.
Have you heard anything from them?
No. No.
But they were home last night?
Yes. My sister-in-law, she was there. She lives in same block, and she is in the ninth floor. And she called him. She said to him, "Just get out from the house." And he said to her, "No, they said I have to stay inside."
More than 200 firefighters are trying to find answers for those families. They've worked in conditions rarely experienced and must now trawl the building for those who've died. They will then try to find out what caused this fire. How it took hold so quickly is occupying many minds. Some blame the cladding recently added in a refurbishment, whilst others question the advice not to try and escape.
One of the things we will be looking at is the rapid fire spread and the speed, obviously, and the growth within the block itself. But that will certainly form part of our investigation post the initial phase that we're in now.
Just 24 hours ago, this place was home to 600 people. In the days ahead, we will discover just how many of the lives lived here were also lost here.
As you can see, Emma joins me now. Utterly heartbreaking stories to listen to today, Emma, and utterly shocking that we can stand here and still see the flames throughout the entire building almost tonight.
Those flames seem to have really come up again in the last few hours. I think the wind is whipping them up. When you look at that building, though, as we have for much of the day, you know, in the dark now, this time 24 hours ago, people were getting ready to go to bed, breaking fasts, making plans for today. Plans that they would never have been able to carry out. And when I walked here earlier, it's just incredible how many people are still out on the street, and they're looking at this building, struggling still to take in what's happened here. And of course, as well as those people who are just watching, trying to understand, there are still those families in community centres nearby waiting to find out what's happened. So many people, and that's what struck me. Every family I've spoken to today seems to have somebody missing, not just one person or two, but 5 people who were all on those higher floors. Now we know that the fire crews have got to the top now. They know roughly how many bodies there are in there, and that is why we're getting the warning that that figure is going to rise, and I suspect significantly.
OK, we'll speak to you again later, Emma. Thank you for the moment for that. Well, of course, many of those who managed to get out alive weren't completely unscathed. They saw things that no one should have to see on the way down and on the way out. And among the survivors' stories, some who owe their lives to the good advice of others.
As the charred skeleton still smoulders, those people who are just minutes away from tragedy relive what they went through.
I heard a woman's voice going, "It's getting bigger, it's getting bigger." So I ran to the front door, looked through the spy hole, and there's smoke everywhere.
Michael escaped from the 7th floor with his girlfriend and her 5-year-old daughter.
So I've grabbed the little girl, swept her out of her bed. She don't know what's happening. I put her in my arms, I put the thing over her head, my dressing gown. Then I've gone into Mum's room. "Mum, wake up, we've got to get out the fires." She's all like, "What's going on, what's going on?"
What was going through your mind when you were coming down those stairs? You couldn't...
Get out, get out, get out, and don't fall, you know, because I've got the kid in my arms, and I think if I fall, people are coming up behind me.
And were there any safety procedures? Did you know about a fire alarm, fire exit?
No, and I didn't hear no fire alarm until I tried to listen up one, and it was like... So it wouldn't have woke you up. If it was another 5 minutes and I'd have slept, we would have perished, because the smoke would have come under the door, and that, but it was thick black.
And people were at the windows?
Yeah, there was people at the windows. When I was looking up, I could see a silhouette of three young kids. They mustn't be no older than their teens. And it said they're banging on the windows. I'm like, look at them kids up there. And the firemen were firing the hoses to keep it cool. And next thing, bang, exploded. And then there was no more sign of the 3 silhouettes.
In the surrounding streets, people gathered, homeless and in shock. Muna was in her flat on the 11th floor with her 3 children when a friend phoned to warn her.
I just wake up my children. My son just didn't even get a chance to get dressed. I just said, you know what, just out, let's go, let's go. I opened the door, the flames came in, so I closed because I was so frightened. I didn't know, is Are we burning? Are we? And then I managed to open it again and just closed our nose and just escaped through the stairs. We saw people jumping from the windows. We saw people screaming. We saw flames coming down. It's not a nice scene at all. People screaming for help. It's not nice. Not nice. Yeah.
Yes, these people survived, but they're left with an indelible trauma. Rebecca Barry, News at 10.
Well, many people who witnessed what happened were almost physically winded by an utter sense of helplessness, watching people trapped in their flats, at their windows and unable to do anything, a trauma in itself. Many say they will be forever haunted by the children's screams and cries for help. The firefighters, more than 200 of them, who started arriving within minutes of the first 999 call, must have struggled to take in what they saw.
It's nearly 24 hours now since the fire started. But tonight, people here are only just finding out who walked out alive and who did not. And in this case, which friends they won't see again. But you do not need to know people who lived in Grenfell Tower to have suffered here. So many people saw what happened, so few could do anything to help.
The people inside the building were giving us eye contact. And they're asking for help. And unfortunately, we couldn't do anything. The people was looking at us. People were calling mom, dad, their loved one. And I'm just staring at them. We couldn't really do anything.
Yes, they were close enough to hear the cries for help.
Try to get out!
And to shout back. But a story you heard again and again here today is one of helplessness.
We were alarmed by the children screaming. They were saying, screaming, save us, save us. And then when we came out, they were shouting, can we jump off the building?
Which floor was this? They were shouting that.
High up.
Really?
Yeah, more than 10 floors.
And of all the unimaginable things they heard last night, it was the cries of help from the children that they struggle with the most.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I heard children. It was just horrible, and all I could do was just stand there.
But they're not images or sounds that you can sort of get out of your head very easily, are they?
I can't, especially hearing the children. I mean, I have kids of my own, and that has really kind of affected me, to be honest, because it's harrowing. You cannot describe it.
And it's why people here stood and stared up in silence at the tower block today, all sharing that same sense of disbelief. Chris Ship, News at 10.
Well, despite the ruined and potentially dangerous state of the tower block, firefighters have now managed to check through most of it. They even reached the top floor. Some bodies have been recovered, but many people are still unaccounted for. That has left frantic families and friends hoping against hope that the person they can't get in touch with has somehow made it somewhere to safety.
On the edges of this disaster, people search for news of loved ones.
I haven't got information from the people.
But rarely do they find anything more than sympathy.
Who are you looking for?
I'm looking for my two cousins. My brother, he's in the 20th floor, and my another cousin is in the 19th floor. She's a lady in my age, and she have a daughter. And my cousin, he's a single man, he's living by himself. And my children been everywhere in the hospitals. They couldn't find them, and they don't know what to do.
Nashua is missing a number of family members, among them her brother Hisham, who she hasn't heard from since the alarm was raised last night.
She called, nobody answered. She called.
You've been trying to ring her, but no one's answering.
No, after 1:30, nobody answered. No. I call my best friend, is like my sister. With her daughter, she's got ulcer.
Every time they looked up today, people in this neighbourhood could see catastrophe. And then there was the wait to find out if someone they knew or somebody they loved had been caught up in it.
One of my sister, and her son is 12 years old.
Nageste's sister Berkti lived with her son Brooke on the 18th floor. She knows from their next door neighbour that they tried to get out, but she doesn't know if they made it.
He already told her, wake up, and she told him when the door, she wanted to leave, and she told him, let's go out. And after that, because of the smoke, because of the darkness, there is no light, so they don't know.
Now you're just waiting.
I'm just waiting. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to go. So I'm just waiting.
The agony here is shared by the family of Saber Neda. In the early hours of this morning, he told his wife and son to leave their top-floor flat without him because he had been injured. In the rush to escape the building, parents were separated from their children. These women are looking for the daughter of a friend.
Some managed to get out and some tripped on bodies that were on the stairs, and then there was a break-up at that point. And we just don't know what emergency services, where they've taken the children to, and we need to know.
This afternoon, the girl Sinead was looking for, 12-year-old Lulia Benyam, was found in a hospital being treated for the effects of smoke inhalation. For so many families here, the process of finding out how badly this tragedy has hurt them is just beginning. Geraint Vincent, News at 10.
Well, of the 74 people who went to hospital, 11 of them have been taken to St Mary's in nearby Paddington. Staff there also treated those caught up in the London Bridge terrorist attack. Well, Sejal Kari is at the hospital for us tonight. And Sejal, what's the latest you're hearing there this evening?
Julie, St Mary's is one of 5 hospitals across London that are still treating 34 patients, 18 of whom are in a critical condition. 3 of those critically ill are being treated here, and they are treating a total of 11 patients here as well, mostly for the effects of smoke inhalation. It is also the reason why specialist teams were sent by the ambulance service to the scene with specialist breathing equipment. And there have been distressing scenes here as well, as people have been frantically searching for missing relatives. I spoke to one woman looking for a friend, a mother of 3 who was in her flat on the 21st floor when the fire broke out. She managed to call a friend to say that she was stuck inside before her phone line went dead. There's been no word from her since.
Sajal, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, when you think what has happened here, it is hard to imagine how anything good can come out of the awful events of last night. But the response of people in the immediate neighbourhood and across West London has been both heartening and, for those left with nothing, clothes, food, a place to sleep, practical in their hour of need. People have been pulling together in the face of unbelievable tragedy.
They started arriving from early morning, before the call for supplies and volunteers had even gone out on social media.
Who's going in the car?
In most cases, they didn't even know each other, but instinctively they'd come together to help. This church hall, one of many in the area, filling by the hour with donations.
They've been offering food, some people have been offering overnight accommodation.
And it was spontaneous, that's the thing.
Oh, absolutely. They've just organised themselves, they're working brilliantly as teams, people are working for the common good. It's absolutely staggering.
This is staggering too. A mountain of donated food and drink at the nearby Westway Sports Centre. Bedding given by the community all across the hall and ready to receive those made homeless. The donations have covered every conceivable need. Accommodation too has come courtesy of social media, people going online to offer rooms in their home.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. This was teamwork. Hundreds involved in feeding and clothing and comforting. From the synagogues to the temples, this was a multicultural community in action.
They can take a little comfort in the love that's been on the streets today, across community, like you've pointed out. I think that's a little bit of comfort in terms of if there could be comfort for such a thing.
You know, we're going to go home to our families tonight. These people aren't, so we're just giving them something less to worry about, I think.
For local residents, Norman and Carla, unable to return home tonight, the kindness of strangers, the food and the warmth is simply overwhelming.
It was unbelievable how people can donate, come together and be so humanism to give and make people really know that we all are human beings, you know.
Everyone pulling together.
The anguish, the questions continue tonight, and so does the hard work by those in the community who want the ones who are suffering to know that they are not alone. Nina Nanar, News at 10 in West London.
And Emma's joined me again. And Emma, it could be some time before we get the final awful figures from this tragedy, but this is a sort of tragedy that can impact a community for generations, such as the scale of this.
Indeed so, and when you walk around here you get the feeling of entire generations of families being caught up in this. From the tiniest children, you know, those little ones who were thrown from the building last night, to the grandparents who must try and guide those children through and guide their families through these really, really tough times. The other thing that strikes me is just how much people have come together. There are just queues of people trying to donate blankets, donate food, all that kind of thing. So that will be really important. But I think the one thing that most people will turn to tomorrow is they want to know what has happened to those who were lost inside, and more as well, they'll want to know exactly how this came to pass. That is the question that they will want answers for as quickly as possible.
OK, Emma, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, never before in modern Britain has there been a fire like this. There are barely the words to describe it. In the middle of a summer's night, in what they thought was the safety of home, people woke to the smell of smoke, the sound of screaming, and later the scorching heat of flames. Disorientated and terrified, those who could struggled to safety. Others stuck to the established advice, stay where you are. Some decided to jump. What must have been a fire in one flat was magnified and multiplied for reasons we can't yet be sure, to just about every other, all in a matter of minutes. A disaster of as yet uncertain scale. It's impossible to imagine the way ahead for those who called Grenfell Tower home. Normal life lies in the embers of this fire. Family, friends, possessions, memories. The kindness of strangers in offers of homes and beds and food is some comfort. But the numbness of loss and shock will hang over this place long after the last wisps of smoke disappear.
The poorest housing in one of the richest boroughs in the country. It's been a day of utter horror and disbelief at the fire in West London early this morning, known to have killed at the very least 12 and who knows how many more. The individual stories that have been told today of death and survival have been hard to bear. I suspect most of us had complacently thought we'd overcome the problem of huge-scale fires of this kind through building codes and regulations, alarms and fire drills. We'll discuss some specific lessons later, but Newsnight has found that the cladding used in the renovation of the building was of a type that is less fire retardant than some others, and it has been associated with fires elsewhere. More on that later, but the fact is that this fire occurred in a building occupied by the relatively poor. Is this a case where the well-to-do in positions of power didn't care enough about the lives of the less well-off because they don't live in those blocks? Or was it ghastly, unfortunate accident? The potential that it is willful carelessness of those in power plays into the divisions and debates that this country has been having. Well, there's a lot to discuss, but we will start at the scene, and Emily is there, in fact, has been there all day. Emily.
Well, 20 hours on, that fire is still burning in the building behind me. You can see perhaps the 20th, 21st, 24th floors still ablaze, a beacon of orange in this night sky now. But yes, this is my borough, this is where I live, and I guess for many of us the first instinct was to try and to muck in. We've been sorting through some of the donations that have been coming to the various churches here, the Westway Sports Centre where the local kids play football, and that incidentally includes the Beckham kids, the Cameron kids, has become the community hub now. The Rugby Portobello Trust is where I've just come from. That has now played a pivotal role in rehousing all the Grenfell residents into local hotels for the night. They've had more than 200 people coming through their door today, and they've rehoused all bar around 40. Those 40 are missing relatives and wanted to stay a little bit closer to home. There's a large Muslim community in Grenfell Towers, and we have seen preparations now for Ramadan, the breaking of the fast, as I speak One local pizzeria is handing out free pizza, which is being dropped off by local residents to some of those hotels. This has been a day powered by volunteers, and it has been an extraordinary response from the community. It's been quite overwhelming. That Rugby Portobello said they've had hundreds of calls of people offering spare rooms for the night to try and house residents. The donations have covered all ends of the culinary spectrum, everything from KFC to Dalesford Organic. You can see some of the fire trucks perhaps still trying to get through to that scene behind me. And there have been surreal elements to the day too, to be frank. I've been sorting through bags of mismatched socks and £500 designer Stella McCartney jeans and those free wash bags that airlines sometimes give out in business class. So that perhaps takes you to the heart of what you were just talking about, Evan, what you describe as sort of resounding thump of inequality which exists right here in this borough. It has never felt more stark than on a day like today. The image that we were all left with was 24 floors of London's poorest burning in their homes in one of the wealthiest places on earth. And already, even when the tragedy is barely a day old, there is an ill-concealed anger that something like this could happen right here in 2017. Our first report tonight comes from David Grossman.
The first call to the fire brigade was just before 1. Jody Martin was there as the first engine arrived. He and his friends filmed what they saw.
When I got there, one fire engine was just arriving and they were unloading their stuff. I grabbed an axe from the back. I could see people in there. I could see the flames on the other side. I went into the second floor for a bridge and then went through an apartment into the corridors. There's an elderly couple in there. I helped them out. It was very, very smoky on the second floor. And as I was coming out, the fire brigade are coming up through the main entrance.
George Clark is an architect and TV presenter. He lives 50 yards from the tower and was woken just after 1.
I looked out the door and I honestly couldn't believe what I saw. All the way to the top was on fire, on that corner. I'm assuming the fire had started around the other side, the side that I couldn't see, which would be the east side of the tower.
Sheets and sheets of cladding and stuff just falling down on fire. And then I walked around and I was just screaming at people, get out now.
I've never seen a fire spread that quickly in a building in my life. But the biggest problem was the outside. That building was reclad last summer in 2016. They spent £10 million on it. I don't care what anyone says, there's no way that that fire should spread that quickly on a newly refurbished building. I saw those cladding panels, the cladding on the outside and the insulation was just peeling off like you'd peel a banana.
And it was burning?
It's burning, it's fully on fire. I could see the flames behind. There's a new cladding system being put on the outside of the building, so like a new skin, and obviously there's an air gap and insulation behind that. To me, it just looked like that was a fantastic chimney for the fire to rage round.
And we were hearing the people screaming. You could see a lady holding her baby out the window, her toddler out the window. Specifically that second from the top flat, so the top one and then one flat underneath that. I seen a family of 3 in there, and I just got the smoke just got worse and worse, and they weren't going anywhere, they were flashing, and then they're just not there anymore. So I don't know what happened there. My partner saw someone jump, and over that side, I know that just from what the officers were doing, the fire officers, that someone had jumped, and I didn't see them jump, but I'd seen the aftermath, and they had landed on a fire officer.
I saw people hanging out the windows. There was a woman on the 14th floor banging something against the outside of the building, screaming at me to get her out. One guy caught a kid. Kid was thrown out of a window from like the 8th floor, and a guy just caught him. It's amazing.
Really?
Yes.
You saw that?
Yeah. It's just unbelievable, you know.
Francis Dean has been looking for his sister Zainab since 2 a.m. She called him from inside the tower. He raced over in his car.
When I got here, I sort of felt like, whoa, this is big, you know, and
I phone her again. Say, Zainab, you need to come out of the building. Come out of the building. Use the stairs. Go down the stairs. She tried as much as she can. She said it was smoky. I said, don't worry about the smoke. It's just smoke. Just go down. Use the stairs. I don't think she did, because she was nervous. She got a little son who was about 2.5 years old to 3, and it's really painful to imagine, because somebody who was with us today, and today now where is she?
Many witnesses told us that people were being told to stay put in their flats, not risk leaving the building. Some undoubtedly owe their survival to not hearing this advice.
I just grabbed my children, my husband, and we just ran through the fire exit stairs. We saw a woman who jumped. We saw people put in bed sheets trying to get down, and police telling them not to. It's just everybody was panicking. It was chaotic.
He's sitting over there, that guy there, on the right-hand side. He's just spent 8 hours in that building. And the look in his eyes, hell. The stories that I've heard today from the guys who have been in that building, there's a lot of people who have died. And from what I saw watching it through the entire night and trying to help out, obviously I couldn't do anything. Anybody that was in that building above the 14th floor, I don't think they got out.
You know what would have helped is if there had been a fire alarm. So when I was in the building, it was dead silent. So I was shocked that there was no fire alarm, no sprinklers. I think people would have got out if there had been an alarm.
Well, as you've been hearing, there have been frantic searches by frantic relatives who have been on site all day, anxious to hear news of any kind about those they can't find. Katie Razzle has been following one man through the day as he went in search of his relatives who lived within the tower.
He said, I'm in the building, I cannot leave because of the smoke. We're not leaving. That's what he said.
The waiting is torture. Chris Jones's brother-in-law lives with his wife and 3 children on the 21st floor of Grenfell Tower. Mr. Jones spoke to his relatives as the fire was spreading, and with his wife and son drove here in the early hours of the morning.
We phoned back, the phone just kept ringing. No one answered the phone. So we phoned his son, no answer, his phone was ringing. For them to be stuck in that situation, it's going to be difficult. Just a family in one flat, in one place, is difficult because they're going to have to make life-changing decisions. I'm hoping, in my mind, that there's families in there that they keep close to the floor and that there'll be enough air to go around the place, but I don't know.
Chris had other relatives in the block too, another brother and sister-in-law on the 9th floor.
She was on the lower floors, no problem with the lower floors, they got out. It's the upper floors that have the problem. I was there about 2:30. Within 20 minutes of that, the whole estate was engulfed, the whole of it. And obviously, saying I got a lot of hope, but I thought to myself, my God, how are they going to get out? We were just hoping.
Hours and hours of waiting. His wife inside the centre for worried families, Chris in the car outside, needing news of any kind.
At 1 o'clock, at least 6 people have died following a huge fire which engulfed a tower block in West London.
It just doesn't look good. 6 people, that'd be very, very, you'd be very lucky if just 6 people did. We expect it to be worse, and it will be worse.
And how's the family bearing up, your family?
Well, they're coping. My head's gonna have to roll somewhere. Somewhere has to roll.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the management of a block so big, they should have fire extinguishers in there. Not only fire extinguishers, but they should have fire points. There should be something to let the tenants know something's gone wrong. There was nothing. No alert. It was just on fire, and that's not good enough. Not in 2017.
The father missing from the 21st floor is a hospital porter in the NHS. His 3 children range from 20 down to just a few years old. There are so many people still unaccounted for. Chris's other relatives were lucky to escape. And this afternoon he helped them take some donated belongings to the hotel they'll sleep in tonight, paid for by the local authority. His brother-in-law was damning about the block's fire safety.
Everything is wrong there. No alarm, no that shower water when the fire, no security, no. It's health and safety hazard over there.
So last night, when did you know there was a fire? What happened?
Around 2 o'clock, I just smelled that plastic burn. I wake up, go to the kitchen, and say maybe someone left something in the kitchen, the cooker. So I go in the kitchen, then light the light, and I saw flames just behind the windows. And I thought, that is wrong, 9th floor flames. So I open the window, then all the smoke, and so I said, it's serious. Go to my wife, I told her, look, wake up, it's a fire. We wake up, we take the children, and you go straight away out.
Mr. Chebiuni's lived in the block for 19 years. He too spoke to their missing relative as the fire spread last night.
We talked to him in the beginning. We talked to him. He said, Aziz, get out, get out, get out. He said, okay. Then he said, no, I can't. Someone told me to stay. It's safe. It's more safer than go out.
Chris ferried the homeless family off to get some sleep.
On social media.
But this evening, on his return, dreadful rumours started appearing online.
The little cousin opened his phone, looked at it on social media. It said, rest in peace, blah, blah, blah. And it was the family. So I said to him, but what does that mean? He says, oh, someone said that they've... I said, but have they got any evidence? Have they actually seen the person themselves or done something? Because if you haven't seen or done anything, it's a bit premature to send out a message like that. But, he rung them back and says, no, that's what we've been hearing. So, unofficially, they've said that the family's dead. All of them are dead. However, we like to make sure we're right. And the only time I see it's right is when I can actually look at a body. Otherwise, I'm not going to recognise anything. And I suppose that's when I start to mourn.
Chris talking to Katie Razzle there, and for every tale of tragedy, and there may be many in the days ahead, there are occasional stories with happy endings. One came through just a few moments ago, a 13-year-old girl missing, presumed dead. Her parents had left her alone in the apartment as they worked on a night shift overnight, has just been reported alive and well, rescued by a neighbour.